Yeah, cool. Sorry for a bit of technical faffing around my end.
No worries.
Where are you today?
We just got into Nottingham, so we're just loading in, getting ready to have a show.
Oh, nice. I'm actually heading that way, not to your show, unfortunately, but I'm actually heading within sort of 50 miles of Nottingham today. So, you should try and go see. You should try and go see Robin Hood. I mean, Robin Hood's dead, but Nottingham does love to bang on about Robin Hood.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've had that recommended to us last time we were here. We had a day off last time we were here, but I think we were all very sleepy. I forget what it was. The days off usually bleed into everybody just sleeping in as long as they can.
Yeah, Nottingham's a bit of a weird one with Robin Hood because I'm from a place called Doncaster, which is actually just down the road, and I say we, I mean maybe it's just me, but there's a bit of sort of like a regional scuffle over who owns Robin Hood.
Who gets Robin Hood?
Yeah, and I get really frustrated about it because like Nottingham, its whole kind of like tourist industry is based around Robin Hood, and
Yeah.
Doncaster is, arguably more impoverished as an area. And I always think if only we had Robin Hood, like, things could have been so different. So anyway, are you one of these people that when you're on tour tries to get out and see things, or do you prefer to stay in your bunk or stay in your sleeping bag?
Oh, no. I try to get out as much as possible. So I still have like a day job that I enjoy. So I choose to work it, and it helps, quite a bit surviving when you're touring intermittently.
Oh,
Especially
what do you do?
I work for a guitar plugin company called STL Tones.
Oh, right, nice.
Yeah, so it's a great team, and I started working there during the pandemic, but they've kind of allowed me to keep my job while we're touring a lot again. So I like sent them my schedule, and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine."
It's the dream, isn't it?
And yeah, right, it is the dream, especially as like a mid-level musician, because like I don't know, I don't think most people realize that like how badly everybody needs a job when they're not on tour. Um,
Yeah.
and so I typically will like wake up and immediately make a beeline for like a local coffee shop recommendation, and then try to knock out like a good chunk of work and maybe eat some breakfast. And then I will try to see like one thing that's
Right.
been sort of passed off, like, oh, you should do this thing if you're in this city. Try to do it if you're near it. And it's also usually like what's within 15 minutes of the venue or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then it's like back to work, and then in the evening I'll work some more either before or after our set just to like close out my work day.
Oh
Um,
man, sounds like you've got it made.
yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have. Like some people are like, oh, aren't you stressed out like doing both? And it's like, yeah, but I don't have to. What was more stressful than that was the constant gaining and losing of jobs, right? So you find a job, you work it, you go on tour, you lose it. And thankfully, I've not had too many of those, but there was definitely stretches in the band where each individual one of us like would have that sort of cycle of losing and gaining jobs. And I think now we're all at the place where we've found jobs that allow us to sort of do both. So I work for this company, and Meredith just I moved up in the company, and Meredith took over my old job at the company. So that's been really nice. And then Ruben works on like raw denim when he's home. Like he just loves denim. And Kyle's obviously a recording engineer, so he's in and out of the studio when we're home. So it kind of has worked out where everybody. I mean, that's also, I guess, the point of when you're a band of like four full ass adults who have like had a life before the band necessarily.
And I was thinking, what am I going to talk to? I was thinking, what am I going to talk to Dylan about? Because I love the new record, and but I was kind of, I don't know. I often find it quite difficult. This is an admission to the listeners of the podcast. I often find it quite difficult to speak to people whose music I really like because do you know what I mean? It's like it's much easier. I find that when there's someone I have like a sort of a tangential kind of interest in,
Yeah.
like I love speaking to anyone who makes music, whether I particularly like their music or not, because I just think it's a good sort of porthole to just speak to interesting people. But it's really
Absolutely.
difficult. It's really difficult when I'm like, oh, I listen to this record all the time.
That's,
But
I mean, that's nice. No, I know exactly what you're saying. It's, I don't know. It's, you don't want to like seem like you're too into it, which is such a weird. I know exactly that feeling you're talking about. I have that feeling when we tour with people that I enjoy, or like I've, become friends with people whose work I admire, and I'm just like, I don't really want to talk to you about how much I enjoy the work that you do, which is so silly. Because we should just be hyping each other up constantly. But also, yeah, there's like this cool factor you want to maintain, some objectivity or something.
yeah, there's definitely a bit of that. But what I was thinking, I was doing a bit of reading. I was reading an interview you did with Misha Perlman, who is the guy
Mhm.
that I know really well,
Oh, cool.
and I was reading this interview you did, and you were talking quite a lot about your fear of death, and I and
Yeah.
I was thinking I'm right in on that because as people who listen to the podcast regularly will no doubt be sick of hearing about by now, I have OCD, and one of my first real kind of problematic obsessions was with death when I was a teenager. Like it's like thinking about the idea of not existing, like
Yeah.
absolutely sent me mental.
Yeah.
Um, I couldn't handle it. I almost felt a little bit like being born. By being born, I'd been cheated, like I'd been coerced. Almost like, what? Hang on, I'm gonna die. Like no one
It's a
said that.
great,
No
yeah,
one
it's a
said,
great burden.
yeah, totally. Like no one said that to me. So I guess where does your fear come from really, and also where are you at with it now? Do you think you've got more of a handle on it than when Misha put a dictaphone in your face?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I didn't have a lot of people dying around me when I was young either. I think I just have an overactive mind. And I remember very vividly around, you know, the sixth or seventh grade when my sort of thinking started evolving beyond, I don't know, I have to play baseball or soccer today. Um, Having these sort of, yeah, these like deep thoughts about what forever means and what the idea of not being alive means and what it's like when somebody dies and goes away forever. And I was raised in a religious area, but not necessarily a religious family. But there was ideas of the afterlife, and then there's ideas of not the afterlife that sort of constantly swirled around my life. And my parents lost a child right before I was born, so there was an element of death that kind of hung over our childhood a little bit, but they didn't like make it obvious. But you like walk down the hallway in our house and there's four baby photos, and you're like, well, where's the fourth one when you're a kid? And you're like, well, where is he? And they explain to you that he died, and you're like six and trying to wrap your head around what that means. Um, but yeah, I have like in the seventh grade, I started getting really into wanting to be an astrophysicist. And then I started thinking about like black holes and eternity and like the edge of the universe and trying to fathom these things. And I would like hurt my brain, and I had insomnia in high school, staying up thinking about what it's going to be like when my parents die, when my grandparents die, and how I'm going to feel, and then as I've gotten older, it hasn't really subsided. I think I've just gotten more okay with it.
Yeah, because you said that thing in that interview with Misha where you were saying that when people say that they're okay with the idea of dying, um, and you were like, you just can't understand how anyone could ever think that. And
Yeah, I still feel that way. I There's a Scorsese interview that he did last year, I think, where he says something very similar, where he's talking about how he can see the end of his life approaching and how it's just bumming him out because he's not going to get to keep making movies, right? And there's so many more stories he wants to tell. And I like read that and just started weeping because I was instantly like, I there's one other person who feels exactly the same way I do. It's Martin Scorsese, and it's like I don't want to die because there's an infinite amount of things I want to be able to do and learn and experience. Even if it's a fucking coffee shop in Nottingham that I discovered for the first time. I want those experiences constantly, and I never want to stop having them. And so the thought of having to slow down and eventually stop existing in this world it bums me out more than anything in the world actually bumps me out. Because I talk to people that are close to me and they're like, I don't want to live forever. I want to go away because like life is hard sometimes. And granted, if I had to like live forever and my body aged forever, then yeah, I would probably want to die. I'm watching my parents get older and they're like, it sucks. And they are constantly joking about, they're only in their 60s, but like, watching them from their 30s to their 50s to their 60s and watching them like narrate the story to me about like how their bodies just don't work the way they used to. And it's something that people tell you your entire life and you don't believe it. And then as I've, gotten into my 30s and watching things change and how I feel, I'm like, yeah, if I had to age forever, I don't want to live forever. But like, if you gave me a magic pill or something, or if you turned me into a Dracula and except I didn't have to like eat people's blood to survive, but I could like stay 40 forever, fuck, I'm in.
Yeah, it's weird though because I watched my dad die about 18 months ago. I was in the hospital when he passed away, and he
Yeah.
was ill for so long, and he there were people sat around the bed that were saying it's time to go, and
Yeah.
he was obviously struggling so much with health issues, and he hung on for ages, and it really made me.
Yeah.
And my dad was someone that didn't really, I can never really understand what he got from life from a certain point. He was very unhappy, but
Yeah.
it was like he just hung on. He just kept sort of
Yeah.
breathing, his lungs were rattling, and I was like, that's so interesting because I don't even think he's conscious, but there's obviously something that's sort of trying to stay here. And
Yeah.
I guess how I fixed it, I guess how I fixed my fear of death is that I started. There's things about the way the world is going that sometimes make me think I'm not sure I want to be here for it. But you said in that you said in that same interview when you were talking about climate change on Misha, you talked about almost like kind of what a privilege it would be to see the end of the world, and I do see what you're saying there. It is that
Yeah.
is that still how you feel? You're almost a little bit like, oh, I could have gone from cholera, but actually to see the collapse of everything is a privilege.
I mean, that's like my smart ass way of trying to cope with the fact that it feels like the world's ending. But I mean, I think there would be a certain privilege or cool factor to seeing how it all plays out. Just in terms of like the scope of humanity, it's not going to be fun. I don't think I actually like we joke constantly like if the apocalypse happens, as much as I want to not die, I'm not somebody who also wants to like kill people to survive.
Yeah,
So that's like the joke. I used to joke like with the like a TV show like The Walking Dead or something where like in the early episodes they always walk into a house that's abandoned and like the family had all hung themselves or something. I'm like, I'm that family. I'm not the person scavenging to survive. Like, that sounds like work. I don't want to do that.
yeah.
But no, yeah, there's definitely an element of like, oh, I don't like the way things are going, but I feel like you have to have a little optimism about that stuff because I I can't say for certain, but I have an inkling that like shit has always been really bad and also simultaneously really good. I talked to my parents about it. I go, oh, man, I'm so afraid of climate change. And my dad goes, yeah, we were afraid that we were going to get nuked at any moment. And and my grandma's generation was like, yeah, we were afraid that we were going to be invaded or get sent off to war or die of some fever. And I think that these things are kind of cyclical. Climate change is a scary one because it's speeding up and is something that seems more unstoppable maybe than nuclear proliferation did. But I think from like an anxiety and a dread standpoint, everything, I don't know. I don't know if we can complain that things are better or worse. I mean, objectively, life's probably better now than it has ever been, like on a global level of suffering and global level of like access to things. But that just shows you how fucked up the world has been because the world is still so broken. But like, it's probably the best it's ever been, which sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I think I sort of look at people. I think the things that concern me, things like climate change. I mean, I'm not going to go outside and burn a big pile of plastic, and
Yeah.
I try to do my recycling and such like, and I try to do the things that you should do, the things that would make Greta proud, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing that terrifies me about the world is that it just feels like kind of psychologically, I feel like something has broken in how we all view ourselves and each other. That's the bit that kind of frightens
Yeah,
me. And I think the thing that was interesting about the album title, about No Joy, is that I rally quite a lot recently about how joy is like this really scant commodity. Like
yeah.
it just feels like people have lost joy, and I can understand why in many ways, but it's definitely something to fight for. Was that on your mind when you titled the record No Joy?
Yeah, I mean, it started as just a joke, especially from that song of like, you know, when I die and meet my maker, like the assumption is going to be like, assuming that I meet my maker. But in this story of the song, at least, right? Like when you enter the light, it's like, oh, you took no joy in the things you did, even though that's kind of like bullshit. It's just that life is difficult. But on like a broader scale, yeah, I think that's just a general thing of like, and that was something that was on our mind when we were writing the album too. Is even though we have these like kind of soul crushing songs sometimes, is trying to find moments of optimism and clarity in them, and even like make the music slightly more upbeat. And so, yeah, I think I feel that deeply that people, a condition of modern living is struggling to find joy and find community, right? There's like this loneliness that's killing us all, and or it feels like there is. And I think that's been the mission statement of our band since we first started, which is just like to be a place for, I don't even want to say misfits or anything, like just anybody who feels alone to just know that they're not in any small way possible. So singing songs about stuff that I feel and that I'm making an assumption that other people feel, no matter how stupid the thought is. Like even something back to an old song of ours where I'm like, I'm worried that when I cut my hair a certain way, I look like a Nazi. You know what I mean? Like that's a joke, but I had that fear, and I've heard people be like, yeah, man, I had to give up this haircut because Nazis started wearing it, and it's like it's such a bummer. And so even like little shit like that, where it's like,
Have you ever been
yeah.
through? Have you ever tried to get a diagnosis of OCD? Because this seems an awful. It seems an awful lot like some of the internal hell that I go through.
I don't know. I think the closest I've come is just my generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm pretty sure I have adult ADHD.
Yeah, they're all
But
bedfellows.
yeah, right. It's like it's something is wrong. Not even wrong. Something is different about me and the way I perceive certain things, and it's not right or wrong. It's just how I am, and you learn to cope with it, and you learn to pay the small taxes since the regular world doesn't function the way that to accommodate you necessarily.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I try to calm my brain very often, and it's a task. But yeah, we're very off topic. But yeah, that's kind of the point of the band, right? Is just to like hopefully connect people in any way at any level, and not make it burdensome to do so.
You said before about wanting to be an astrophysicist, and you also mentioned religion. In terms of your anxiety, and particularly the kind of the theme of not existing, is there any kind of like spirituality that's at play, or anything that you do believe that is a bit woo or a bit kind of beyond the
No, I
materiality?
I think I struggle with that a lot. It's not something that it would be arrogant to have an answer either way. Um, I think that probably just comes from where I grew up. So I grew up in like a very conservative kind of Bible belty area of Southern California. I grew up going to church. Don't know if I believed in it ever. My dad, man, I just got like not even a dark family history, but just like every family's family history. But my dad was an alcoholic, and then he got sober, so he started going to AA, and as part of that, we started going to church. The higher power part of it. I don't know if he believed in it, but it was something to latch onto while he like healed himself. And then that sort of fizzled out. Around that same time, I remember when I wanted to study astrophysics, I also started reckoning with the fact that there might not be a God, which like terrified. Again, I was like 12 years old, and I was like, oh, whoa, this is too much.
Man,
Um,
you are literally telling the story of my life.
yeah. So I remember being scared of astrophysics because I might have to face some very tough questions. Then as I've gotten older, I studied. I spent a year at a Jesuit school, so I had to do a bunch of religious studies and ethics. which was fascinating. But it's not something that I've ever like either latched onto or shied away from. My older brother is a deeply religious person, and my younger brother is the opposite. So I think we just kind of fall in this weird spectrum of, whatever gets you through the day, as long as you're not hurting other people, I don't really give a shit. As soon as you start using something to justify hurting other people, we have an issue because that's like antithetical to religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
writ large. Yeah.
yeah. I think religion is amazing. I just think that
Yeah.
just the presentation of it is often
Yeah.
appalling, you know. But
Yeah.
do you have any interest in UFOs?
Uh, a passing interest. Meredith is like obsessed with the supernatural and the extra natural or whatever, all that stuff. So we have a lot of discussions about like cryptids and UFOs and stuff like that. And I think it's fascinating. I hope that aliens are real, and I hope that they're here, and I hope that we get to experience I hope we get to experience a peaceful version of an alien in our lifetime. I would just because I want to see what it does to religion. Like that's the only reason I want to see it. Is like how do you like justify this religious experience with the fact that like we are not the only life on in the universe would be fascinating to me. But that's also like you could just write a book about that. I don't know.
Well, firstly, I'm going to speak to your PR, Haley, and say, why did you not pair me up with Meredith? Because she sounds absolutely my wheelhouse. But no, the reason I say this is because I've always been interested in UFOs, and I do think that the current moment is a fascinating time. If you have an interest in UFOs, because there's hearings in Congress and such like.
Yeah.
There was a skiff. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but there was basically like a bunch of senators last Friday who were interviewed coming out of this skiff that was then being told things about UAPs, UFOs, things in the sky that they couldn't be told in public. And they were taught that there was actually senators coming out of this meeting saying that they'd been told about interdimensional beings. And this stuff is like an absolute tonic for my obsession with death and the lack of meaning in the world, because it is almost like, it's kind of, it just makes me feel small, and I'm not scared of that anymore, and it makes me feel there's more than this. So basically, if our paths cross again, I would like to think that you'd found UFOs.
Yeah, I mean that'd be amazing. Interdimensional beings is like that, just tickles my brain. I'm so excited by that idea.
Well, I was listening to a podcast last night. I was lying in bed, and someone was talking about the person. It's called Patterns Tell Stories is this podcast I listen to, and they were talking about the idea that if you're lying in bed and actually there was existence kind of laid on top of you, and I was just lying in bed, and I was like sort of just pushing my bum into my wife, being like, "Hold me, hold me."
I love that stuff. The only thing that makes me sad about that is I want to experience it. Like I want to go to another dimension. That'd be fucking crazy, and it would be cool and terrifying. Yeah, no, I love that shit. I try not to worry about it because I have a tendency to fixate sometimes, and I don't want to fixate on stuff that really is beyond my control, and that again would be arrogant for me to assume one way or the other is true or not true and what it means. Like all I'm trying to do is like minimize damage and have a good time while like I don't. It's not a great way to live your life, but it's like
I know, I love that.
But it's like living for the moment while also trying to be prepared to not like be a burden on other people as you age, and like not flame out, but come as close to flaming out as possible while also like being able to stick the landing.
Man, honestly, I love these conversations they're sort of tangentially about music, but with people whose music I love. Because when you come away and you're like, I think I like the music even more now. So thank you for giving me that. Haley was very. She was keep this to 30 minutes, so we should probably think about wrapping up. But given if there is another dimension, I presume you'll be trying to book a tour in it. But failing that. The record came out like a while ago, really, but it's not like you kind of hang around not doing anything. So where are
Yeah.
you at with what's next?
So I mean, it came out in August. This is like the first headline tour we've got to do for it. So we're over here, and then we have a US headlining tour that should be announcing in like a week or two. I haven't been hiding it. Like people know it's coming. I just haven't. We haven't been able to announce it yet.
Do you have songs for
And
another
then
record?
no, I mean I have ideas gestating. We're pretty much touring. Like we do that US tour, and then we go do another thing, which I can't talk about, and then we're home for 3 weeks, and we come do another thing. Oh, well, we're doing the Gaslight shows over here in June and July.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we have those, and then some other stuff around that I can't talk about yet. And then I don't know what the back half of the year looks like. As far as I have booked, I'm going to a wedding in Mexico City at the beginning of August, and then I don't know what's after that. I'm sure I'll sit down at some point. There's some talk about doing some alternative versions of some of the No Joy songs that our bassist Trevor has been working on, and some covers and stuff, just to sort of like keep the wheel in motion of music. And then I have a gestation of a bunch of ideas, and like I don't know if I look at I keep all my lyrics in like a note on my phone, because it's become the fastest way for me to write things and not lose it. So I can usually tell if I have to scroll for more than a few seconds that I'm getting into like I have a few songs territory, which is good. So I'll probably start pulling those out, and then I usually also work on song titles. Like if I have some song titles that'll inspire me, and I think I have the most song titles I've ever had written before an album or even a
Ooh.
cycle. So I have like 30 something song titles, and they're all like fun.
I,
So I might try writing exclusively from song titles this time around. I'm always trying to find a thing that makes me interested. So like Schmaltz was like, what if I wrote about how bad I suck and how bad I feel like I suck? And then Brave Faces was like, what if I wrote stories about how bad the world sucks? And then No Joy was, I told the band I'm going to write a love album. Like this is a collection of love songs. So this new one, I'm trying to figure out what the hook is. So yeah,
I,
maybe I'll write it from song
I,
titles or
I mean, I just think you should write an album about aliens.
about it.
Actually, when you get to
I have to do
Mexico,
a deep dive.
there's some people in Mexico who recently think they've found the mummified bodies of aliens. So, you could always poke your head in when you're there.
Just do
What about,
some.
yeah, do some recce. What about covers? Like, because I love your covers, and I think
Yeah.
I can't think of a band that, well, a contemporary band really, that sort of pays tribute to the music that they love so often as you. Is there anything you're itching to do a version of?
No, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I actually hate covers, but the pandemic really forced us into the sort of covers thing that people have really responded to. So we've like leaned into it. I like doing things I hmm, that like make me annoyed or scared, or like anything that makes me uncomfortable is probably a worthwhile thing to do. So it's been nice kind of coping with the idea of covers. We have an NXS cover that's sitting in the bank somewhere. I don't know what we're doing with it.
Oh wow,
But we did that,
amazing!
and that was kind of a big influence on the new album. Um,
Do you
and
know a
then
Do you know a song
yeah,
called
sorry.
Do you know a song called "Something to Believe In" by the Ramones?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like my favorite song, and
Okay,
I think that song. I mean, I literally could, it's like if you said to
write
someone what's
that
your favorite
down.
song, people struggle with that, right? But like I've worked it
Yeah.
out with lists and graphs and pie
I
charts. Um,
mean, it's a
even
great song.
I mean, I think that song is one of the best songs ever written about existential dread and
Yeah.
loneliness. So I'm just saying,
Just throw it out there.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, it's. I think we'll do a few more. We gotta figure some things out. What did I throw out the other day that I wanted to do? Because we got offered to do something and we didn't have any. I was like, we could do the NXS cover for it, or we could do something new. Oh, like a Bell and Sebastian cover would be fun. I think.
Oh
Like
wow,
being
wow.
over here, I'm just like, oh yeah, what other bands have we not like mined for influences that people like publicly know about? Obviously, these are things that are on our playlist constantly and just we absorb. But I feel like people, I don't know. I don't think we ever get to talk about, no, that's not true, but we don't talk as much as we should about the random stuff that influences us. I think the thing that some people might not understand about bands is like typically people in bands, even if they're playing in like a pop punk or an emo band or whatever, their love of music is far deeper than just that. It's just those are the types of songs that they either feel comfortable writing or know how to write or just like comes out of them, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like a weird death obsessed kid who grew up listening to Blink 182. So like as much as I try to write my like Americana shit, like there's still that, you know, 4-chord Blink pop punk that like seeps its way into it somehow. And I've tried to purge myself of it for my entire adult life, but it's in there. And so I like talking about the stuff that's like on the fringes of what people wouldn't expect from us.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you go hang out with Robin Hood, but I do hope our paths cross again because this has been a very pleasant way to spend 30 minutes.
Yeah, I could be here all day. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh well, we'll do it again sometime, and you can bring Meredith, and you can feel
Perfect.
like
Yeah, we should do a supernatural episode. She would love that.
Yeah, you can feel like the third wheel with your own wife while we talk about Bigfoot.
I would just be here being like, "Are you sure? Like, is that very rational?" And she'd be like, "Shut up, shut up." Yeah, that is the one point where we diverge, and she will get mad at me. Where I'm like, "Are you sure you saw a ghost?" And she's like, "Yeah, I saw a ghost." You know what I mean?
Well, listen, this is very forward, given we've never met before. But if we ever find ourselves in the same area, we should double date because my wife is even more skeptical than that. So the two of you can form a front.
I love this.
What are our loved ones? What is this nonsense are our loved ones that are obsessed with?
I love this. This is great. Yeah, that would be fun.
Well, listen, I hope you have a lovely day in Nottingham, and I'll speak to you again.
Of course. Cheers. Thanks.
See you, dude. Bye.